Is it just to hold someone accountable for a crime they committed as a result of a mental illness? This question has been debated for decades, and it's not hard to understand why. On the one hand, we want justice to be served, but on the other hand, we also want to be fair and empathetic towards those who may not have been in their right mind when they committed the crime. First and foremost, it's important to understand that mental illness is a complex and often misunderstood condition. It can manifest in a variety of ways, and not everyone who suffers from a mental illness will commit a crime. In fact, studies have shown that the majority of people with mental illness are not violent. However, there are instances where a person with a mental illness may commit a crime, and in those cases, it's important to determine whether or not they should be held accountable. One argument for holding someone with a mental illness accountable for their actions is that they still made a conscious decision to commit the crime. While it's true that mental illness can impair a person's judgment and decision-making abilities, it's also true that many people with mental illness are able to understand right from wrong. If they knew that their actions were wrong, and they made a conscious decision to commit the crime anyway, then they should be held accountable for their actions. On the other hand, there are those who argue that holding someone with a mental illness accountable for their actions is unfair and unjust. They argue that the person may not have been in their right mind when they committed the crime, and that they should be treated with compassion and empathy, rather than punishment. After all, punishing someone with a mental illness may not do anything to prevent future crimes, and it may only serve to exacerbate their condition. So, what's the answer? Unfortunately, there's no easy answer to this question. Every case is different, and it's up to the justice system to determine whether or not a person with a mental illness should be held accountable for their actions. It's important for the justice system to take into account the individual's mental state at the time of the crime, as well as their history of mental illness and any treatment they may have received. In the end, the question of whether or not to hold someone with a mental illness accountable for a crime they committed is a complex and difficult one. It requires a delicate balance between justice and compassion, and it's up to us as a society to find that balance. Only then can we ensure that justice is truly being served, while also treating those with mental illness with the empathy and compassion they deserve.